Hello everybody, welcome to That's Football. Could it be the end of the transfer window as we know it? We had the Bosman ruling all those years ago, or we could have the Diarra ruling in Belgium coming through. If you've not heard what this is all about, basically, worst case scenario, or some players may say best case scenario, you could have a situation where a player in contract hands their notice in and moves to another club the next month for nothing. That's basically what could happen in the worst case scenario. So what is actually happening here? What are your thoughts on it? And also, we've got this new transfer window that's occurring at the start of June ahead of this UEFA World Club competition, so that those clubs can actually buy players in before that tournament. Yeah, but look, let's talk about the big story. So, Lassana Diarra, you might remember him. He played for Madrid, he played for Portsmouth, he played for Chelsea. He had more clubs than Tiger Woods because he was playing for Lokomotiv Moscow in Russia in 2014, when effectively his contract was terminated as he walked away and over, I think it was a wage dispute. He then went to play in Belgium, and FIFA basically said that the Belgian club and Diarra were liable to compensation to pay to Lokomotiv Moscow, and I think it was about £10 million. So this case is now back in the Belgian courts, as Diarra is saying that it's unfair that he was having to pay compensation and the club that he was going to was threatened with paying compensation. Some would say that might be fair, but ultimately this is what it all revolves around: freedom of movement for players. Because in that situation, Diarra had a wage cut, so decided he was off, and then wanted to play for another club and didn't think it was fair that he had to pay compensation to the club that he was under contract with, which was Lokomotiv Moscow. So to bring it into modern terms, this would be, for example, I don't know, random player. James Maddison is at Spurs. Spurs decide that they're not going to pay his wages, or they want to pay a wage cut, which was contractually agreed. Maddison says, I'm off, and then wants to go and play for PSG, but PSG and Maddison have got to pay compensation because Maddison's walked out when his contract's still got 2 or 3 years on it. You can sort of understand Diarra's position. And if that case is upheld, and in very strict parameters that can happen, then okay, that's fine. But that's not always how it works. It could be that the ruling is players must have freedom of movement. If you're in a job, it's very unlikely when you take a job at Tesco or a local bank or whatever that your contract is going to say you can't leave for 3 years. You'll have a notice period of maybe a month, maybe 3 months. And where this could go wrong for football is, football works under very specific rules that work for football. If you sign Erling Haaland, you want the security that he's here for 4 years, and if he goes anywhere, you're going to be compensated. If you remove that, and Erling Haaland suddenly thinks, I don't like the way you're treating me. You put me on the bench. I wanted to play in that game and break the goal record. I don't like this. There's my notice. 3 months notice, I'm off to Real Madrid, and guess what? You don't get any compensation. This would blow the doors off football. So it is a case to keep an eye on. Nobody really knows which way it's going to go. The hope and expectation is that actually Diarra makes some good points. His wages were messed around with, and therefore, under freedom of movement, surely it's fair that he leaves the club and goes somewhere and doesn't have to pay compensation when they weren't paying the wages that were agreed. Contracts are going to have to get tighter. But worst case scenario, sometimes when you go to these sort of courts that aren't football courts, they might go, you know what? Your whole contract system in football is actually anti-competitive. Your whole contract system in football doesn't comply with fair working rules in the European Union. In which case, it could become very, very interesting, because you'd have to look at it then and go, if a player gets unhappy, he can hand his notice in and go, and you don't get any compensation. So it's certainly one to monitor. I think technically we've probably just about nailed it, but what would you rather have? Would you like a situation whereby Bruno Fernandes is playing for Manchester United, he gets dropped for Christian Eriksen, Eriksen does really well, Bruno doesn't get picked for 2 months and is on the bench and goes, I don't like the way you're treating me, I want to play football and you're stopping me from playing football. Yes, I'm on a good wage, but I want to play football and you're stopping me doing my job. There is a club in Portugal that will take me tomorrow and start me. I want to go. I'm handing in my notice, 3 months notice. Off he goes in 3 months, doesn't get any money from Manchester United. Man United don't get a transfer fee. It sounds ridiculous, but it's only the same as everybody else in the world. You can put some restrictions in there, and when you sign them, you can get them to sign certain stuff, but it still has to be compliant with rules. And if these rules change, it becomes very, very interesting, doesn't it? I mean, can you imagine that? Halfway through the season, the striker for Arsenal fancies a move to Man United because he's not being picked, or you know, the manager spoke to him badly. You know, I know I'm starting for Arsenal, but I don't like the way Arteta spoke to me. The workplace has become untenable. It's toxic. I'm feeling uncomfortable in my workplace. I'm feeling victimised. I need to go and go and play for Man United. It sounds ridiculous, and I'm sure and hopeful that we will find a way through it. But it all goes back to Diarra is testing it because he wasn't being paid wages and walked. And when you test it on one thing, it could be tested on a few other things as well. As for the transfer window that they're going to bring in at the start of June to help out their Club World Cup competition that they've got going on, I can't believe this tournament's taking place. So from the middle of June to the middle of July, I mean, it's basically a World Cup or a Euros for certain clubs. From the middle of June to the middle of July, Chelsea, Man City and a load of European clubs and worldwide clubs are going to go and play in America in a tournament that I'm not watching, but will watch. I'll be honest, we don't need this tournament. It's a bloody waste of time. If I played for Man City and Chelsea, I'd be bloody furious. What about the international games that are going to take place at that time? Are they all being moved around? Can we move in June internationals now? It's incredible to me what that they're actually even running this tournament. We don't need it. We've got the Champions League. The Champions League tells us who the best team in the world is. We don't need a Club World Cup. It's more football. It's a month. But they're going to open up the transfer window for 10 days before it so that those clubs playing in it can buy players that can play in it. I'll tell you what, if I'm playing for Arsenal or I'm playing for a club that's not in that tournament and I get a phone call from Man City saying, yeah, we want to sign you because we want to play you this. Mate, I'm in Dubai. I'm in a pool here with a pina colada surrounded by very interesting people. You can screw your Club World Cup. I'm having a month off. See you in August. This to me is just an example of FIFA yet again, and UEFA do it. More games, more money. It makes no sense to me. We don't need that tournament. Players do need a rest, and they're basically turning football into 24/7, 365 days a year, and they haven't got enough footballers for it because the whole beauty of football is there is a selection of world-class players at any one time, in any one time period. And this to me is just incredible, absolutely incredible that we are still adding to the calendar. And what you were going to, I mean, and what's the player motivation for that tournament? I've always wanted to win the Club Super World Cup club competition that probably will get binned off very, very quickly. Nah, waste of time. Anyway, get your comments in below. Lots to digest there. Smash a like on the video and subscribe, and I'll speak to you on the next one.